This is the run through for the Offsec machine resourced. It's a resource-based constrained delegation attack. Essentially, the flow is you um, you see on an SMB share there are details of users, and in the description of one you'll see a password. Use that password to log into the share. You'll be able to download a system hive as part of a password audit and the NTDS file, and then from that you can use secrets dump of in packet to dump all the hashes. One of those hashes works to log on to the box, and then from there you realize that the user you have has generic write all or generic attribute on the domain controller, which means that they can um, create a malicious um, computer account, and they can the, tell the domain controller that they can that account can act on behalf of them, which allows that bogus computer account to mint their own administrative tickets, and then they can get an admin session on the box. So my mmap scan, um, if my screensaver say changed there, I just had to take a phone call, so I paused the recording. Uh, so just have a look. Is that pretty much? Can maybe zoom in a touch more. That's the scan I ran if you're interested, and then you just see its Active Directory. Here's the name of the machine we're on, which is the domain controller, because it's got just that domain controller looking name. Um, and then that's the domain resource DC. Sorry, the domain controller is called resource DC, and it is on the resourced.local domain. Um, I gave these ports a once over. There isn't a web application or anything. It's all sort of command line sort of based. So I found this information via RPC client. I'm just going to move things along here for this recording, but it started getting juicy as well, even though this is an RPC client. When I um, realized I could read the password policy, I did. I should have dug deeper in with this, but didn't. I moved to our PC client, but I can get the same information I found here. So you can get a list of users in their descriptions. Vivents left Hotel California. So if we try and see what's going on, we will see there's some shares. Password audit. What the heck is that? Obviously, that's very interesting. So let's go in again. Have a session, get the password, and now I'm just going to put cursor on. Uh, so we can see now we can get this. This is, I thought it was the system hive, it was, and that has the boot key, and if you combine it with this NTDS dit file, which has the hashes of the passwords in, you can use secrets dump, in packet secrets dump, to get all of the password hashes. I've already downloaded these. You do something like mget, or you can turn prompt off as well, um, and then just get them to your machine, which I've done. So if I go to dumping creds, and then we're telling in packet here, let me just back up, I'm pacing through this too much. I've downloaded the system and the NTDS file, and this was the output before. Um, and we're just telling secrets dump, we're doing this locally. So when we do that, it takes both of those files and just blurts all the hashes out, which is great. You'll notice that these are all the same because this is the LM hash in all of these users. This is the NTLM hash. And I'll pause, or I'll leave you to pause here. You can pursue this if you want, try and figure out what's next. Otherwise, I'm just going to move straight on. After spraying these credentials, all of these hashes, just these single values, these NTLM values, we will discover that Livingston's hash is still valid. So what that means is we can use that like so with evil WinRM, so we get a session. I need to back out of this directory though, so I'm going to exit the session. I'm going to go back to where I was because I have Power View in this directory, so I want to launch my session from there. Clear the terminal and then upload Power View, and then I want to import it. Okay, so what I would do here next time, which I didn't do this time, is run Bloodhound straight away. The reason I didn't do that is I have a checklist of things, and it wasn't higher up, but I should have run it earlier. It probably would have made my life easier, but I got there eventually. Essentially, what we're looking for with resource-based constrained delegation is an account that has right over a resource, specifically in this instance the domain controller. So this is a Power View command to get the access control lists on a particular resource. So the domain controller, and we want to find which objects have generical over that resource. There are 4 objects. 512 on the security identifier always just smacks of admin account. That's kind of obvious. So this one, 1105. So I think, yeah, convert on SID. So take the SID and convert it into the name. It is the user we are. So that user has generical over this particular resource, the domain controller, which is very good news. So let's get some other tools for this kind of attack. I hadn't used stand-in before for this. I found I can't remember the guy's name. He did a very good walkthrough as well. You probably see it because I don't think there were many on this particular box for this particular attack. So shout out to him, XRT, I think that was him. So this is just to get stand-in, and imtools is just an alias to launch a server from my immediate tools directory. So I have stand-in .NET 3.5 and 3.4, and this tool just allows you to create computers, or I should say computer accounts, on your Active Directory, if you have the permissions. When you download the zip, there are 2 versions, hence why I have a 3.5 and a 4.5 for name. So I'm getting stand-in for the 4.5 one. I had both in case I needed to use the different ones. And then also we want Rubius. Cool. So stand-in, make a nasty machine. this password is very important. I did try getting the hash. Let me back up. The password's important because you need to get the hash out of it. I did try making the hash natively on my Kali machine. I don't think it worked out too well, so it's best to do it on the machine you're using, or where Rubius is basically. So we get the hash on my nasty machine. It's this RC4 hash we want, and we can see now that the computer accounts on this machine are now our nasty one and the domain controller, and we have this SID which we'll also need. So now here, so we're going to add the SID of our nasty computer to the domain controller, and stand-in will take that and do the add the attribute of our SID to the domain controller's MSDS allowed to act on behalf of their identity, which means essentially the nasty computer we've created can now act on behalf of the domain controller, which means it can get the it can create tickets. So if I just take this, put that in there, right. This is it's a tricky. I found it tricky to pull all this off, so I've probably tried recording this clip about 6 times now. Anyway, so we're going to tell Rubius we want to use service for user, which is a Kerberos extension service. We're going to take the account of our computer, which is nasty. The $signs I think do matter. If you have trouble with this, this would be one of the first places I'd go to troubleshoot. Even though I didn't put a $sign in my name, it's still valid. I think we saw the resource, the domain controller had a $sign in its name. This is the hash from here, 50F. We want to impersonate the administrator on the domain controller. There's the domain we're in. There's the IP of the domain controller. We're going to do a ticket attack, so we want the ticket, and no wrap means that the blobs of base 64 which will come out are all on one line. Gorgeous. So here, the administrator one is the one we want. We want this blob of base 64, and then we're going to I'm just going to come out of this session now. So echo our base 64 blob into a file called ticket.b64. Lovely. Then we basically take our blob of base 64 and all we do is decode it into a Kirby ticket format file. Then we get in packets. I'm just going to clean the terminal. In packet ticket converter. We take our basically decoded blob of base 64 and we're going to convert it into a C cache file. That's done. Good. Then I'm going to do this really intentionally. So where are we? We're there. So we need to create, yes, this environment variable, because PSExec will look for this environment variable. It needs to know where the ticket is, the ticket which is for the administrator to start the session. So that is where we are, and the C cache is the name of our ticket, and there is that there. And now, so we're doing PS exec using Kerberos. We're not using a password. No, is that okay? Let me, in fact, let me not misspeak here. Okay, yes, it's using Kerberos. We're not using a password, so we're going to use a ticket on this domain as the administrator at the uh, domain controller on this domain. One important thing to add is, let me just, wait, you've got to put the IP, well I did, the IP of the target in your host file for both of those. You could probably just do one, as in this one. I don't know, but I think it needs to be done. Where were we? Here we were. Lovely. Now, great. So I'm going to come out of this. Like, that's the box. The added bits. There is a simpler way to do this. Um, so the first one is, so if we go back just to Livingston, and we've discovered that Livingston had generic all on the domain controller. In Packet has a resource-based constrained delegation tool, which we can just use straight away. So we just need to, whoa, that fingered that. So I think, so I'm just going to explain what we've got here. So we want to write to the domain controller that we're going to permit delegation on its behalf from our machine nasty. Notice the $sign. The hash we're using is, this is Livingston's hash because he's the one who has permission, or she. And then we put the domain and their account. And if we do this, it says, because we've just done it already, I think it says it already can impersonate, but this would be another way to do it. And then I think we can get, we just do the PS exec again. Like this. So that's another way to do it. There is also a Python script somewhere that is slightly different. Yeah. Um, Let me just have a quick look for where it is. Ever so slightly different. Yeah, there. Um, so you can look into this if you want. In fact, hmm, that's probably why. Anyway, It's by TOTHI, and it's this RBCD attack script. Um, so that's an alternative. The way that would work is so I think it's yeah, I've got it here. Okay, like this. So this is where I think there's nuances with the namings of things. There's no dollar signs on these guys, which say, and it's just a bit shorter. Like we want to write to the domain controller from nasty, the computer we've created, and again we're giving Livingston's hash. We run that, and it says it can already. I think it doesn't actually say it can already do it. It just tells you it's done it, even though it already could. So that's another way. And then again, you just use PSExec. So there are like three versions of like, or three ways to pull this off. But ultimately, we then get the session via PSExec. I hope that was useful. I really do. And yeah, happy hacking.